Gosh darn, man. This is just not going to go away, isn't it? Today, we're talking about the failed Montreal Canadiens Matthew Knies trade once more. And how the fact that the Maple Leafs didn't make this trade, it seems to have actually saved the franchise. This conversation extends way beyond just Matthew Knies and what he has to offer to the Montreal Canadiens. It extends beyond Alexander Zhuravsky. It goes into the Gavin McKenna discourse. And heck, you can even say that Auston Matthews plays a really big part in the outcome, the verdict of how Matthew Knies failed to get traded to the Montreal Canadiens. If you hadn't seen all the video commentaries that we made about the matter, we did speak about it over the course of the past few days. There were trade talks between the Canadiens and the Leafs for Matthew Knies, and the fact that it didn't go through was not a matter of the teams disagreeing on terms. It was straight up just Brad Treliving submitted the trade at 3:01 p.m., and Kent Hughes went all Godfather mode on Toronto after the fact. He was pissed to see this trade not actually manifest itself. But now, because Matthew Knies remains a Maple Leaf, and because the trade didn't go down, we have a number of domino effect consequences that we can legitimately dive into for what this trade, or this failed trade, resulted in for the Maple Leafs. HS Hockey made this post 2 days ago. 128,000 views, a 1,000 liked tweet. If the Knies trade went through, 1. Toronto does not land Gavin McKenna. 2. The Boston Bruins would get 6th overall plus Fraser Minten, and Montreal gets Knies, which means that the Maple Leafs' two biggest rivals load up. Number 3, the Toronto Maple Leafs would be left with Zhuravsky and 2 firsts, one of which would be 28th overall. And number 4, Auston Matthews would request a trade. 1 minute might have saved the Maple Leafs from a decade of rebuilding. Now, where exactly is this coming from? Well, we have to dive into each of the elements here. Gavin McKenna is going to Toronto because the Toronto Maple Leafs ended up winning the first overall pick. They jumped up 4 spots in order to get that draft selection. And the fact that they ended up winning it is just crazy, in my opinion at least. In order for the Maple Leafs to have won the draft lottery, everything needed to fall in order. They needed this amount of points, they needed those same lottery balls to get picked up, and they needed everything to just domino itself into this outcome. If Matthew Knies gets traded, that changes the results of however many games Knies played with the Maple Leafs post-trade deadline. Sure, it might not be a whole season's worth of time, but enough games is enough games, and Knies, I get that he's a part of a team that was losing all these games here and there, but just one change in the sacred timeline would make everything different. And the Maple Leafs might not actually walk away with the first overall pick as a result. Next up, Boston getting 6th overall and Fraser Minten. That would be crazy, because when you think about the trade which sent Fraser Minten over to the Boston Bruins in the first place, that trade included a draft pick selection, that in which was not determined at the time. Let's head over to Fraser Minten and his overall profile, and we'll look at the trade which sent him over to Boston. Okay, this is literally just a tweet from Elliot Friedman. Come on, man, give us the details. Anyways, Puckpedia has the actual juicy stuff that we care about. The Maple Leafs acquired Brandon Carlo for Fraser Minten, a 2026 first and a 2025 fourth. However, when you look at the pick itself, it was top 5 protected. This means that if the Toronto Maple Leafs had their first round pick as a top 5 pick, then the next pick would automatically go over to the Boston Bruins. However, because the pick was number 1, yeah, Toronto's keeping this year's pick. If Toronto was in the 6th overall spot, which could have been possible, don't want to say it's guaranteed, then Boston would have gotten this pick instead, plus Fraser Minten. So that obviously is a less desired outcome for Maple Leafs fans. Toronto would then be left with Jarofsky and 2 firsts, one of which would be 28th overall. Yeah, that is the Montreal Canadiens first round pick, which I guess is not really in play at the moment. I mean, there probably were conversations of Montreal trading this draft pick away for a Robert Thomas or somebody, Jordan Kyrou maybe, Vinny Trocheck, but ultimately it still remains with the Habs right now, and I think this is probably going to stay in play over the next little while. I don't really see a need for the Montreal Canadiens to use it. They could have realistically just sent it over and the Maple Leafs would have had it. And then you'd also have Matthews requesting a trade. So, hey, there's a chance this still happens. It's possible, right? Can Auston Matthews look at the state of the Toronto Maple Leafs and say, darn, this team doesn't stick up for me. I don't want to captain them anymore. I want to leave. I want to be like Dylan Larkin. This could very realistically happen as well, despite the fact that Gavin McKenna is coming over. But I would at least give it 1 year. Just see what Matthews is like alongside of another first overall pick. The 2 times the Maple Leafs are in the lottery conversation, they end up winning. And all the other times they made the playoffs. So, hey, the whole world revolves around Toronto, doesn't it? Leo goes out there and says, hey, I'm saving this tweet when Matthews requests a trade in a few weeks. And then HS Hockey says, oh, he's not a quitter. He's not like Quinn Hughes. Ay. Those are fighting words, man. Those are fighting words. How would the Leafs not get McKenna? Assuming everything stays the same and the 5th pick becomes the first overall pick. Again, everything needs to be exactly the same as it was in reality in order for McKenna to come back to Toronto in a situation where Knies leaves. But it's not guaranteed that you'll be able to do that, right? McKenna could have been a Canuck if Toronto didn't make... Or I guess if they did make the move and they changed the sacred timeline forever. Why don't you think Toronto wouldn't have gotten McKenna? Because they wouldn't have finished 5th. He might have actually had a better chance at number 1. Okay, that's a really big burn. That means they wouldn't have won the lottery, you goofball. You don't know that. You're talking hypothetical. Different teams in different orders, all having different numbers. It's all hypothetical. I guess that's really what it boils down to at the end of the day. But I still do agree with the thesis of this tweet over here that 1 minute may have potentially saved the Maple Leafs from rebuilding for so darn long. With the Auston Matthews, McKenna, and Fraser Minten conversation all being put into play, it adds a lot of extra elements to what the Toronto Maple Leafs had to go through this year, and how the Montreal Canadiens, if Kent Hughes ended up getting his way, things would be so different. We would not have any recognizable idea as to how to identify it. Gavin McKenna could be a Canuck, and I guess if that was the case, then, maybe I would have liked that a lot more. Who really knows? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the failed Matthew Knies trade resulting in so many big domino effect moves with McKenna, with Fraser Minten, with Auston Matthews, and with the potential of the Toronto Maple Leafs? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.